This podcast is for you. Your co-hosts, Ben Dodge and Eric Huso at Effect Epic Consulting, believe that your potential is limitless. Tapping into this potential is how you can affect epic results in your life, relationships, and business. Welcome to the Principles of Epic Growth.
Good morning, brother.
Good morning, Eric. How are you, man?
Great to be with you today.
Heck yeah, especially today.
It's a beautiful day, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's a beautiful day.
I love podcast recording day.
Something to look forward to. So this last week, I was with a buddy of mine, and he was complimenting us on our podcast. He's like, man, you guys put out some great stuff. And he shared with me how he is sharing it with some people that he cares about in his life, where he felt like, hey, it could make a difference. I'm like, awesome. And he's like, can I make a request? Can I make a request that you do a podcast on how to parent teenagers? And his 15-year-old son's in the car with him. And you could see his son roll his eyes like, Dad, go, no, serious, like, could you give me a podcast on how to parent? So while this isn't dedicated specifically and totally to parenting, because the principles that we're going to talk about apply whether you're parenting teenagers or you're a teacher in a classroom or you're a manager of employees, we're talking about leading human beings and leading them powerfully and helping them to be their very best, which is what parents want, which is what leaders want, employees want, business owners want, etc.
Yeah, so I keep shaking my head in the background, nodding yes, because I, for one, don't have teenagers to parent, right? And so I suspect there's others out there. And so I would just reinforce that, yeah. What we talk about today is all about leadership. And you're going to lead your family, you're going to lead your company, you're going to lead a relationship with a spouse, you're going to lead kids on a soccer team if that's what you're into, like whatever it is. You'll see, where the principles that we're going to talk about today are phenomenal, yeah. And especially when you apply them to things like parenting, but as a business owner, like I use these every day for my business and my leadership role there.
These principles work with human beings, whether the human beings we're talking about are 5 or 15 or 25 or 55, and anything in between. There's certain fundamental, they're called universal principles for a reason because they have universal application to all people in all situations in all places. And so it's not necessarily something that's specific to parenting that we'll talk about, but there are powerful applications there.
So the umbrella, just before we get too far down the road, the umbrella of what we're talking about today is persuasion versus force.
Yeah.
That's the context, that's the title, that's the umbrella that we're going to be, the leadership principles that we're going to talk about are going to be under the umbrella of persuasion versus force. Now think about all those people who you want to do a certain thing. Your friends, your coworkers, your employees, your kids, your spouse, whatever. Persuasion versus force. We're going to unpack that today.
Persuasion is an incredible skill that is something that is developed over time through great effort and great intention. And coercion is something that if you're not very good at persuading that you'll have to rely on. And coercion will only get you so far. It will have it's limited in its impact. And if you rely on coercion, if you rely on force, then it's very temporary, the impact they're going to have, because the value on coercion is it's inversely related to its use. So the more you use it, the less valuable it is.
Yeah, so the truth be told is you're not a leader when leading by force. You're just not.
No.
You're a temporary stooge holding a very short time position. Like there's no enduring or sustaining reign there.
Can we trademark that?
You're
a temporary stooge.
That's it. You're a temporary stooge.
A true charlatan, yes.
And the funny thing is everyone knows it except you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you know it too, but out of fear or whatever, you just keep.
Most of the time, you're blind to it.
Yeah. So
most of the time, you're blind to it.
Let's not be temporary stooges. Let's learn how to actually lead, and that kind of leadership is enduring. It's sustainable, and people will follow you, right? And that's the power of persuasion versus force.
It takes great patience to become this kind of leader, and so be patient with yourself. This is a lifetime pursuit to become a persuasive leader. So this isn't something that you're going to listen to this podcast and flip a switch and say, oh, I'm going to be a persuasive leader now. I'm going to be a persuasive parent versus a coercive leader, a coercive parent. This is a lifetime journey of becoming, and it's rooted in your character. And so be patient with yourself as you go on this journey. So just going back to the whole parenting idea. So in my personal experience, it is easier to sell somebody to go to a $5,000 leadership course than to go to a $300 parenting course. It's easier to fill a room with people that want to become a better leader and have them pay $5,000 than to fill a room on how to become a better parent and charge $300. And I've thought about it a bit, and some of it, I believe, comes down to the psychology of I don't want to admit that I suck as a parent. I don't want to admit that, man, I just really don't have it together. I don't know how to parent. I don't know how to lead in my own home.
Absolutely.
And the irony is, if you've ever been to a leadership course, a really good leadership course, you're surrounded by people who are really successful in the world. They're making, some millions of dollars. You're surrounded by millionaires that are super successful, just killing it in the world. And inevitably, the conversation turns to, man, I'm really doing really good in my business, but I cannot connect with my teenage daughter, or I have no relationship with my children, or my marriage has failed, or it inevitably turns to that. And the irony of that is you forget the principle that parenthood is leadership. And the things that happen in your home, they are directly tied to your ability to lead.
Yeah. So when I hear somebody say that I'm really doing well at work, I'm really successful. My business is everything I dreamed it would be, but I don't have it together at home. My relationship with my spouse sucks. My relationship with my kids suck. So ding, 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 red flag. Guess what? Your work sucks too. Just call it out. If you think it's good, just imagine your leadership failure at home is the same kind of character and leadership principles that are required at work. And so whatever you have achieved is still limited by your own flaws, and you can bolster that to the moon. Just fix it. Fix the leadership all the way around. You fix leadership, it doesn't just apply in one context. Fixing leadership is across the board. So that's what I hear when I hear business owners talk to us like that, and clients, they're like, yeah, I'm doing really well at work, but the sucks at home. Instantly I'm like, in my mind, you're probably actually not doing that well at work, or at least as well as you could be.
So much
That's
better.
right.
Yeah. Because some level of financial success has blinded you to some of these areas in your leadership where you could be even better than you are.
Yeah. And they have no idea really what the relationship with their employees is or customers is. They think things are good and they're probably not, or they could be better, that kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely.
Because if you're a business owner, as a boss, you have to understand that you're in a position of power. And just because of your title, like, people will do what you say because they want to keep their job.
Mm-hmm.
And just because of all that you know, because you're involved in high-level discussions, people will do what you say regardless if they believe it's the right thing to do. Like, they'll follow the leader down the drain because they want to keep their job. They want to please the boss. And you might be asleep to that fact, and you might be doing things that are actually really counterproductive in your organization, really counterproductive to the human development side of the people that work for you, and you could be doing so much better. So how things are at home can be a great tool for you to say, oh, wait a minute, I can be better at work.
That's right. That's right. So let's jump into it. We got a few principles here to cover today.
So one of the most powerful principles of any leader is to honor choice and to recognize that there's power in choice. And you can get people to do anything, but it's a short term, right? It's that temporary stooge thing that I'm not going to get out of my mind.
This is persuasion versus force. That you have to acknowledge that there's power in choice in those who you are leading, whether they're your employees, your coworkers, your friends, your teenage kids. There's power in choice. Empower that choice. Empower them with it. Teach them, lead them, guide them, and allow them to choose.
Yeah.
And then there's some accountability and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, power and choice as opposed to taking their choice away, right? then you put your temporary stooge hat on, and you're not a leader. You're literally just a stooge. And
do this because I say so.
Yep, and it's not going to last.
You'll get a temporary win, and that's the enticement for the business leader to use coercion in the workplace. That's the enticement for the parent to use coercion in the home, is you get a temporary win. Like, you can get the chores done by using coercion. Like, you can get it done, but it comes at a cost, and it's not going to be a long-term sustainable thing.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. The other one too about not peaking early, persuasion versus force, is you don't have to worry about making sure everything's perfect right away in those that you lead. Yeah. And I think you made a note earlier about raising perfect teenagers. Right?
There's no such thing as a perfect teenager.
No such thing.
And one of the biggest mistakes that I see parents make is they take it personally how their teenagers act and turn out, and they're afraid of the judgments of other people, and so they'll make decisions in their parenting that will have their children appear to be perfect, appear to be good, because it's a reflection on them. Oh, I'm such a great parent because look at my perfect teenagers, how they act. And when you use coercion to create that image of my kids perfect, that is definitely a short-term win.
It's a house of cards.
Your kid will peak early, and when they're out of that force of coercion, they're going to do whatever the heck they want. And so, really important that you're okay with your kid failing, that failure has its proper role, like as the greatest teacher there is on earth, and that you're okay that you might not look great for a certain period as you're working with your kid through this process of persuasion to help them become people of character and the kinds of human beings that are going to make a difference in the world.
Absolutely. One of the fundamental principles, intention. Fundamental leadership principle in almost everything that we talk about absolutely applies to persuasion versus coercion.
Talk to us about that a bit.
I was just going to ask you how. I mean, I have my opinion for sure. Yeah. So in my experience, one of the most difficult hurdles and challenges that everybody faces as a leader is whether or not they're acting intentional. Have they taken the time to be super clear on what they want to create? And if so, then your ability to be persuasive versus coercive is completely magnified. So now you're not just haphazardly running around shouting and barking orders because you're trying to get something done really quickly, because intention isn't necessarily knowing what you want to do. I mean, that's a part of it. That's baby steps, though. That's the low-hanging fruit. In terms of persuasion and coercion, intention is knowing how you want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's taking time to reflect on, what do I want to create with this person or these people that I'm leading, so that I'm leading them, I'm persuading them, I'm not forcing them, I'm not coercing them, I'm co-creating a scenario with them where we're all doing this together to accomplish X, Y, Z. See, some leaders don't even know what they're trying to accomplish, and they're just barking orders and shouting out stuff just for the heck of it. Others know what they want, but they don't know how to get there, and so they just shout out and bark out orders because they just want it done.
Force, yeah.
They just know that they want it done, and they don't care how it gets done. That short-sighted vision is the vision of a temporary stooge.
Yeah. And it's I hate to be overly simplistic here, but this idea of intention is pretty simple. You really just have to ask yourself, what's my intention here?
So one of my favorite sayings is simple but not easy.
Yeah.
See, it's simple to understand, but it's not easy to implement. Why? Because we're firefighters all the time, right? We're putting out fires.
Yep.
We don't take the time to slow down and actually think intentionally. Intentionality is not a character trait that comes naturally. You have to really create that one decision at a time, one moment at a time, one day at a time, 1 year at a time, to where it's just woven into your character and you're a person of intention.
Yeah. And so if you're a business leader and you're going to have a staff meeting, you're trying to accomplish something, and you're awake to this idea of, I don't want to be coercive, I want to use the power of persuasion, just asking yourself that simple question here, what is my intention here? What do I want to create with my team that will create this long-term effect versus the short-term win? And just asking yourself that question, what is my intention, is going to open up the actions to do, right? Asking yourself, what is my intention with my child? Okay, so you find out that your kid, you get a phone call from the teacher at school. Hey, Johnny did da, 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 and you're like, oh crap, you know. And
I'm sure my parents got a lot of those
You
calls.
got a lot of those calls, I'm sure.
I know they did.
Simply asking yourself the question, what is my intention here? What do I want to create with my son? What do I want to create with my daughter here in this situation? Then that will open up the possibility of action in a persuasive way versus this coercive way. Another thing that I would add to this is it's critical that you don't focus on behavior, but that you act as a leader and dig a little deeper and discover what's behind the behavior. So kids act out, and they act out for a variety of reasons. And if you just respond to the behavior, you're most likely going to respond in a coercive way. You're going to respond with force versus a persuasive way. And so critical to get behind the action of the behavior. So
yeah, so I was going to say, and one of the next ones we're going to talk about, but we don't have to move on, is just listening to learn. And that's one of the ways that you get behind the behavior is you listen, you learn, you're intentional about trying to figure out why they're doing something. How on earth can you help correct a behavior if you don't know why it's happening?
This is one of the biggest mistakes that managers make. Is managers, they see some kind of inappropriate behavior happening in the workplace, and how do they handle it? They go to the person like, stop this, knock this off, and then they walk away, and then the employee's like just full of resentment, right? Full of resentment, rebellion, wondering, man, how long can I work here? Like, I'm done. Like, I'm out of here. I'm not putting up with this garbage anymore. And then you deal with all the garbage of turnover and the costs of that, etc. And so if you're going to be a leader, then if you see inappropriate behavior, you have to be with the person in a way. You have to listen to them. You have to hear them, have the connection with them to find out the why behind the behavior. Oftentimes it's a misunderstanding, and you can just clarify that misunderstanding, boom, right then and there.
Yeah, and maybe you have to own it as the leader. Maybe they don't understand the importance of XYZ behavior that you want out of them because you haven't shared the vision and the purpose behind what you're doing well enough with them to get it. A little shout out to extreme ownership again, but yeah, I mean, there's lots of things as opposed to just, drilling down further and further on more regulations, more rules, more policies, because you're trying to just control behavior. That's not leadership. That's coercion. That's temporary stooge. You're not gonna last. The company's not gonna last. That relationship's not gonna last. Like you've really accomplished nothing, and you probably didn't even get the short win on some of those.
Yeah, and if you think just saying something once is enough to have everybody understand it, especially to the degree that you understand it, you're a fool. Okay, if you really want someone to understand something, how many times does it take to truly understand something? So repeat it. Repetition. Let them hear it from you multiple times. And then you own it first initially as the leader. So if somebody isn't performing in the way that you've shared in a staff meeting, then own it. Like, maybe I didn't teach it clear enough. Maybe I didn't teach it well enough. Maybe I need to clarify and reteach. So you own that.
That's right. Absolutely. One of the ones that I love here is the whole self-worth issue. Praising the why, not the do. So huge pet peeve of mine is the participation award that everyone gets in our society as kids, all the way up to adults even sometimes, right? And all of a sudden you get culture shock. You're at work and you do something and it sucks, and your boss is like, this sucks, redo it, or you're fired, kind of a thing, or you're not getting the job because you suck. And then you're like, what? But I was always told I was so good at this. I know that's kind of, just hypothetical and a little blown out of proportion. But the reality is if you're leading somebody, there's going to very often they might fall short of a perfect standard, and you might have very high expectations, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, when leading them to achieve those standards, you should not falsely praise something that wasn't done as well as you wanted it to get done. But you should look into the why they're doing it, their efforts that they're put forth. Find the thing to praise that can help bolster up their self-worth there and their self-esteem, in the sense that you're praising them because they're on the right track, not because they did a good job. And if you just say good job, then make sure you clarify that good job in the sense that you did a really good job trying today.
Yeah.
And I know you can do more. And there's a ton of research on this as to where you can, as a leader, you're in a unique position to prime the pump, so to speak, to like fan the flame when somebody falls short of something. If you acknowledge that they fell short, but then express of confidence in their ability to do it if they tried again, their results are incrementally higher and higher each time. And you've led them to achieve what your goal was to achieve anyways, but you've led them to this great success within themselves as well. You've developed a leader by leading.
Yeah. That happened because you truly cared about them. I got a question for you around this. So you're a business leader. What advice would you give to parents to prepare their children to be an employee? Like, as you think about, you talked about sometimes it's hard to correct an employee because they're used to getting the participation ribbon. What can parents do with their children while they're in their home to prepare them for success in the workplace?
Unconditionally love your kids, but stop coddling them. Like, there's a huge difference between unconditionally loving and leading your child through a challenging and difficult life as opposed to just coddling. I mean, look, you're going to open up a can of worms with me. I hate that. I think it's horrible. We're killing our own future sometimes, but yeah. So as a parent, I would say be intentional, put them in difficult scenarios, let them fall short, and then use that as an opportunity to express a vote of confidence in their ability to do it if they kept trying. And if they tried it maybe a different way, sit down and have the conversation with them about what they can do different, as opposed to the little old grandma or mom who's too chicken to tell them that their son really sucks or their granddaughter sucks at this and this and that. Instead, like, why not acknowledge that they're giving their all as a kid? And that's amazing. It might not be enough to go play your violin in Carnegie Hall. Like, not right now, not today, Sally. Like, you're terrible. Like, the people outside are running away from our house because of the screeching, But I acknowledge and admire your dream to play there. And I feel like the effort you're putting in is more than all the other kids who aren't putting in effort right now. And that's awesome. So what can we do differently, Sally? How can we make this better next time? What if you tried da-da-da note or tried to, playing da-da-da this way or whatever. And instead of, oh, you did so good. You did. Look, grandmas are the worst at this. They're the most inauthentic complimenters this planet has ever seen. You're so good. You did so great. Maybe not. And what does that mean without specificity? So be intentional, be specific, unconditionally love them. Don't coddle them. There's a difference. You should absolutely be their biggest fan. I'm not saying you're a jerk. Don't be a rude son of a gun. Don't sit there and demean or belittle your kids' efforts. That's terrible. That's not leadership either.
Right.
That's just being a butt wipe. What you need to do is unconditionally love them. Unconditionally love them and lead them with intention. It takes intention, and that's one of our biggest flaws is we act too quickly sometimes without thinking. We act out of our own emotions, we act out of our own fears sometimes, or we act out of convenience. So we don't take the time to be intentional to have those tough conversations, or what can really be life-defining moments where they acknowledged your love for them and your confidence that they can be better. No matter what they did, no matter how good they did, your confidence in that they could be better. And you had a co-creation moment where they also contributed some feedback as to how they think they can be better too. Talk about a huge difference. And one last note, how do you talk to your kids about being employees? I don't. I'm going to teach them to be an employer.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying. The principles.
To thrive in the workplace.
I really feel that way. You should absolutely knock off the coddling. You're just killing the world. Yeah. Knock off the coddling, but increase the unconditional love and the intentionality. Don't be a jerk to your kids. Don't be rude. Don't demean and don't belittle their accomplishments. But don't be inauthentic. Be specific with what you're praising and find the thing that they're actually trying to do well and compliment them that they're trying to do it well, and then help them be better. Be a parent. Don't just turn on the TV and walk in the other room. Like, be a parent. Lead them. And that goes for every employee, every coworker, everything. Same principle.
Acknowledge the why behind it. Just had an experience this morning with my daughter. So I got home from a bike ride, and she has been working out with my wife on a consistent basis early in the morning, getting up at 5 o'clock. So for a teenage girl. That's pretty impressive, right? So
Which one?
Aubrey.
Wow.
Yeah, my 16-year-old daughter. So I walk in the door for my bike ride, and she's in the kitchen with my wife. They just finished working out, and first thing out of her mouth, "Dad, aren't you so proud of me?" Like, of course I am. What am I proud of you for? Because I've been getting up every morning and working out with Mom. I'm like, well, I am really proud of you. Not so much that you're getting up and working out, but that you're choosing to get up and you're doing it on a consistent basis. You're committed. That's what I'm proud of you for. Like, whether you work out or not, like, that's doesn't make me proud of you. But what makes me proud of you is your commitment, and that you are setting your alarm on your own, waking up on your own, and you're doing it every day. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah.
Yeah, be specific. Cool.
Another thing that will help you as a parent is to be a person of integrity. Nothing wipes away, smothers, destroys your power than you not keeping your word with your kid. Okay? You want your kids to be individuals of integrity. If you're a business owner, you want your people to be people of integrity. Well, nothing will kill that than your own out of integrity behavior. So,
how long does a hypocrite last? Dude, every hypocrite's caught. Every hypocrite's found out.
Yeah.
Hypocrites are temporary stooges. They're not leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. You want to wipe out your own leadership, you want to undercut your own authority, break your word. And even on the simplest assertions, even on the simplest implications, there's so much to integrity. It's not just doing what you say you're going to do. That's like the easiest part of integrity to understand, at least. It's all the other things. And go back to the integrity podcast, right? And go listen to that.
Because we got a couple of them.
We break down integrity in lot. There's so many different, really wonderful articles written about integrity, and we just break them all down. But yeah, it's the simplest things. Sometimes it's even expected that you do a certain thing, or you're home by a certain time or whatever, and it's implied, and everyone knows that it's expected, but nobody ever said a word about it. You can still break that your word and breach your integrity by not complying with what's implied sometimes. So yeah, absolutely. With your kids, with coworkers, with employees, even the simplest of things. I'm going to work on this bonus plan for you immediately. 2 months goes by. Employee's like, where's the bonus plan? And you're like, I'm actually still working on it. Well, then why did you use the word immediately? And this is a real life story I'm dealing with one of our clients, and so it's a problem. The employees view the employer as not having integrity because he's saying things, and yet it's not happening at the same time frame. Now this particular person thinks he's totally in integrity, like he's not out of it, he's in it. But yet he doesn't understand that the implications of the words that he chooses, right? And so, you got to be really careful about that.
Yep. Integrity is all about honoring your word, keeping your word. And so you got to be really intentional with the words that come out of your mouth if you're going to be a person of integrity. And that's so true, not only in the workplace, but also in the home. This a week and a half ago, President George Bush passed away. And he was the president of the United States when I was in high school.
Wow, you're kind of old.
I wasn't into politics back then, and didn't really recognize him if he was a good president or a bad president, or
right.
I wasn't reading the newspaper or much anything back then. So, but this past week and a half, the media has really kind of dug into the life of George Bush as a leader and the impact that he was. And regardless of your politics, they really did a great job of pointing out his character that made a difference. And one of the things that really impressed me was his role as a father and his role as a husband. That he was obviously not a perfect parent, but he was an incredible parent. He was an intentional parent. He was a parent that parented with commitment. He was a parent that parented with integrity. A lot of these principles we talked about. And those things were also evident in his leadership in the White House.
That's right.
And if you haven't had a chance to read some of the things that have been written about him the last week and a half, take some time and look at the principles of leadership that George Bush demonstrated, both in the White House and in his own house. And that reminds me of a quote that his wife said, that your success is not dependent on what happens in the White House. It's what happens in your house. And George Bush was a great leader both in the White House and in his house. And that's what we're talking about today is the things that are happening in your house can be really instructive to help you to be a more effective leader outside of your house, whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in what you said about him being intentional, of all the principles that we talked about today, about the power of choice, self-worth, everything, listening to learn, understanding the behavior behind things, integrity, all of this. I feel like if anyone can just focus on one thing to improve their leadership in all areas, it would be intentionality. Just be intentional, take that time, and watch what can happen. Like, you'll make mistakes, right? We're people. We'll make mistakes, but you'll make less. You'll make less and less mistakes. The more intentional you are, the less mistakes you'll make. And the probability of your success is much higher just because you're being intentional. Yeah. So I love it.
So as we wrap things up, we have skimmed the surface, right? We have skimmed the surface of some of these principles. We have older podcasts where you can go into more depth, but even more than that, this is something that many of you probably could use a coach with. Like if there's something that you've heard where you have been working on it, but you're not having success, and you're getting frustrated with yourself, like getting a mentor, getting a coach, aligning yourself with somebody who can help you to practice these things is going to be critical.
Yeah, absolutely. Give us a call. Email us, message us. We're here for you. We're so committed to your success. Today's topic of persuasion versus force is really pretty incredible if you think about it. Be that person that's persuasive. You don't have to rely on manipulation. You don't have to rely on force or coercion. You can actually lead people through persuasion. And so these are all those things that matter.
Awesome.
Have a great day.
We'll see you.
Thanks for listening to the Principles of Epic Growth podcast, your path to epic performance and life with incredible growth.